people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. On the heels of what is perhaps the biggest win of her professional boxing career,
Eddie Hearn is named Chris Cyborg
and Holly Holm as potential opponent options for Katie Taylor, but said the Amanda Serrano rematch at Croke Park in Ireland is likely the top choice. I'll tell you this now. I wouldn't be surprised if the rematch with Amanda isn't an immediate rematch. I wouldn't be surprised if Amanda goes her own way, goes in a different direction. I'd love to see the rematch just as much as many of you out there would like to see the rematch. But you know how boxing is.
Jake Paul's supposed to be returning to action at the end of the summer in August.
Between now and August, there's plenty of time for Amanda Serrano to recuperate and make an in-the-ring appearance, perhaps at featherweight, where she means to become that division's undisputed champion. There's enough time in between there to negotiate a fight with either Erica Cruz or Sarah Mahfoud.
I mean, surely, if Yamilet Mercado could muster up the courage to move up in weight for Amanda,
and Argentinia's Daniela Bermudez, if these two fighters could muster up the courage to move up in weight for Amanda, why can't Erica Cruz and Sarah Mahfoud summon up enough courage to unify titles with her? Perhaps they don't like their chances against her.
But Amanda Serrano is the biggest name at the weight, and if you're not trying to fight her, you're not trying to fight anyone.
The way I see it, there's a distinct possibility that perhaps Amanda returns to the ring at featherweight on the undercard of Jake Paul's next fight. That's a distinct possibility.
If the immediate rematch with Katie ain't next,
what they're looking to do is stage some crossover fights. A crossover fight with Chris Cyborg, a crossover fight with Holly Holm. Some weeks ago and months, we heard a blurb, talked about it here on the channel, of Holly Holm returning to the sport of professional boxing. It would be a welcome return. Holly Holm is one of the pioneers, one of the trailblazers of the previous era.
The sport of women's boxing now is a lot different than when she left it.
A lot better. There are that many more opportunities, that many more platforms.
I feel like Holly Holm is a bit more realistic than Chris Cyborg because Holly was a boxer herself.
She didn't get the same fame and notoriety in the boxing ring that she eventually got in the octagon, but she is a decorated fighter. She was a decorated champion, and transitioning back to boxing, I don't think would be that much of a hurdle for her, at least not as much as it would be for Chris Cyborg.
Yeah, Chris don't come from a boxing background.
For many years now, Chris Cyborg has played with the idea of a crossover fight between herself and a decorated boxer. Initially, it was Cecilia Brækhus' name that was in the hat back when Cecilia Brækhus was the welterweight division's undisputed champion. There were those talks, those conversations. Here and now, it seems that Katie Taylor...
Well, it might be Katie she ends up fighting.
They really could make a lot of money with a fight like that. All of Katie's followers, her supporters, and Chris Cyborg's supporters as well. The same applies to Holly Holm. These are two fighters that amassed a following in the octagon. They have their own fans that they bring to the table.
Their own marquee value.
You know what they say, what don't make dollars don't make sense. So those are distinct possibilities, though I'm not really settled on the idea that Katie Taylor's very next fight is going to be a novelty crossover fight with a mixed martial artist.
This sounds like an idea they're bouncing around.
We'll see if anything comes of that, if anything comes into fruition.
And women's minimum weight knows.
Alexis Kubicki wastes no time and will pair up in Augsburg with the best. WBC champion Tina Rupprecht is getting ready for her unification match.
Unification match? Who's she unifying with?
I heard a rumor 1 or 2 weeks ago, came across some inside intel that things really aren't working out between Senicia Estrada and Yo Castavalle, what was supposed to be their unification match. Late last year, we heard news that Senicia would defend her title and then move straight into a unification match with the reigning IBF minimum weight champion of Costa Rica.
Yo Castavalle.
As stated, I received some inside intel that they haven't gained any ground on that and that they have instead shifted their focus to a Tina Rupprecht fight, a Tina Rupprecht unification match, which is just as good, if not better, than unifying titles with Yo Castavalle, because Tina's a titleist, she's got the green belt, she's a WBC champion at minimum weight, and she actually beat Yo Castavalle some years ago. So in that way, if this rumor checks out, Senicia would be unifying titles with a better fighter than Yokasta is.
Word around the campfire is Tina Rupprecht is preparing for a unification match. Unification with who?
Only news I've heard out of the minimum weight division in recent memory in reference to a unification match is news of a potential Estrada versus Rupprecht unification match. And let's see if that rumor checks out. If it does, it's an excellent fight. I mean, Tina Rupprecht possesses some of the same qualities that you see in Senicia Estrada. She's just not as big a puncher.
Now, granted, she's not as big a puncher as Senicia, and she's not a switch hitter like Senicia either.
Though she is light on her feet like Senicia, she does have some speed in those hands like Senicia as well. Some good in and out game.
Tina is a better fighter than Yokasta Valle.
And she has reigned as a champion in the minimum weight division much longer than either Yokasta Valle or the reigning WBO champion of Vietnam, Thi Nguyen.
If this rumor checks out and this fight materializes, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see the Ring Magazine title on the line in that fight.
But right now, it is just a rumor I came across, thus it must be treated as such. At this time, Senicia Estrada took to her own social media stating she's eager to get back out there, and what that communicates to me is if there's a fight in the works, it's not done yet.
We're now 5 months into the year of 2022.
Golden Boy Promotions was supposed to get Senicia Estrada out there early this year, and 5 months later, they still haven't scheduled her a fight, and we know that Senicia Estrada seems to be having issues with them, openly expressing her discontent by way of her social media.
You know, Senicia Estrada is a complete package.
Highly skilled, fan-friendly fighter with a fan-friendly style that can fight at multiple weights, is good for a knockout or at minimum a knockdown, good on the comms, can call the action, good with the play-by-play. I mean, what the hell else do you want? What the hell else do you need? And Golden Boy Promotions, you know...
Screwing the pooch here.
I just hope that these rumors of a Tina Rupprecht unification match are confirmed, because Tina's preparing to unify with somebody. It could be Senicia Estrada. That's what I heard a little over a week ago, but it could very well be Yokasta Valle. A safer fight, a safer choice for Tina than Senicia Estrada. We'll just have to wait and see. In men's light heavyweight news, in my previous video, we talked about Bob Arum's sentiments in reference to this weekend's upcoming fight between Canelo Alvarez and reigning WBA light heavyweight champion Dimitri Bivol. In so many words, Bob feels Canelo's going to be too much for that guy. And what Bob wants to do is negotiate a fight between Canelo Alvarez and the winner of Artur Beterbiev versus Joe Smith Jr. But not for later on this year, you understand. The winner of that fight...
The fight between Artur and Joe is supposed to go down in June.
So think about it. You got Canelo Alvarez fighting this weekend, and then you have the winner of that fight emerging next month. There's plenty of room in there to try to do the fight between them at the end of the year, but that's not what Bob Arum is proposing. What Bob Arum is proposing is waiting till May of next year. Very curious.
Why is that?
Canelo Alvarez has stated he plans on fighting 3 times this year. Once this weekend, then again in September in the Golovkin trilogy, and then presumably again...
What, in December?
Presumably against the winner of either Joshua Buatsi, Craig Richards, John Ryder. Those are a couple of names that are in the hat. But if Canelo Alvarez does in fact plan on fighting 3 times this year, why not just have him go from the Golovkin trilogy into the fight with the winner of Beterbiev versus Smith? Well, I can think of a few reasons. I vaguely recall Bob Arum saying that the winner of Beterbiev versus Smith will then have to move into a fight with Anthony Yarde.
Anthony Yarde is in a pole position by way of the WBO to become their next mandatory challenge.
Anthony, obviously Joe Smith Jr. and Artur Beterbiev will have their fight. We're expecting you to be called as mandatory for Joe Smith Jr. So you just got to sit tight, wait for them to fight. You're going to have a tick-over fight. Are you going to be on the Fury white belt? Can you tell us?
Hopefully. Again, things have been put to me, and
Anthony Yarde, who very recently rejected an offer to face Joshua Buatsi.
Well, when you were put in as #1 with the WBO, an offer came in the words of Eddie Hearn, a huge offer for you to fight Buatsi on the zone.
Okay.
So were you aware of that?
Do you know when I got told about that? I got told about that like 2 weeks ago.
Wow, really?
Do you get what I'm saying? And with me, I don't pay attention to it. But again, even if I got told about that, I'll say that's stupid. Why am I gonna? Eddie Hearn's a smart geezer. Again, I've had conversations with Eddie Hearn. He's a very smart guy. He knows when to put the offer in. Because why didn't he give me the offer before? Do you get what I'm saying? Well, he knows the time to put in the offer. He knows I'm mandatory for a world title, possibly a unification bout. It makes no common sense to have that fight as, again, that's you're basically saying I should have that fight as a warm-up fight. It's silly.
from Eddie Hearn.
What that guy figures is, what am I going to fight Joshua Buatsi for when I'm in a pole position to fight for a title?
But he figures. Now, Anthony Yard hasn't seen any action since December of last year when he knocked out Lyndon Arthur in their rematch, in their second fight. And at this time, I know of no fights on the horizon for Anthony Yard. So you
rejected an offer to face Joshua Buatsi from Eddie Hearn for obvious reasons.
You're not going to gamble your potential title shot against that guy. Not at this time. Not when you're so close to it. You're not going to do him any favors, and that's understandable. But what's Frank got in store for you? What's Frank got lined up? Because the way it looks, if you don't have a fight between now and later on this year, you're going to go into that fight with the winner of Beterbiev versus Smith, whoever it ends up being.
Having not fought since December?
This is why I said it would have made sense to get Anthony Yard on the undercard of Fury versus Veit, because that undercard, needed serious decoration, serious dolling up, and you didn't have to conjure up somebody difficult or dangerous for Anthony to tune up with. All you had to do was find some guy for him to knock out.
Tommy Tomato Can kind of guy.
What do you want to do? You want to shake off dust and ring rust with the winner of Beterbiev versus Smith? Don't you think you should keep busy ahead of that fight, so going into it you stay sharp? I mean, wouldn't that make some sense?
Hey, it's his prerogative.
In any event, I get the sense that Bob isn't pushing for Canelo to face the winner of Beterbiev versus Smith before this year is out, because he's planning on matching the winner against Anthony Yard first.
Before this year is out.
Then, whoever the winner of that fight ends up being, that's who he hopes to match against Canelo Alvarez in May of next year, because Bob likely knows, like many of you out there know, that Canelo may fight under the Matchroom banner not just 2 times, but 3 times this year.
He will let him settle his business with Eddie Hearn, then push to bring him over to ESPN.
But I'm guessing Bob's not comfortable with the idea of sending the winner of Beterbiev versus Smith over to the Zone to fight on their shows, fight on their platform. That's not what he wants. What he wants to do is let Canelo settle whatever business affairs he still has with Eddie, and, once all that's said and done, he'll make a pitch, try to get the guy over to ESPN, and do the fight as an ESPN pay-per-view.
Which is no consequence to me and you, because wherever Canelo fights, it's going to be a pay-per-view.
The Zone, ESPN, is Showtime. It's all the same.
His fights are strictly pay-per-view fights from now on, regardless of what platform is airing them.
Matchroom may very well have Canelo Alvarez for his next 3 fights, and let's hope that it goes well for him, because I very much would like to see him go on a second undisputed campaign in the light heavyweight division, but I do feel that that campaign is contingent upon how he feels and how he performs this weekend.
Looks all but invincible as a super middleweight.
Yeah, as a super middleweight against guys like Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Plant. But let me tell you, the guy he's fighting this weekend, this ain't no Billy Joe Saunders. This ain't no Caleb Plant.
I've honestly seldom ever seen Dmitry Bivol uncomfortable in a fight.
He's had some flashier fights than others, some more exciting fights than others, some more interesting opponents. There have been some snoozers, some lackluster performances, though lackluster in the sense that they lacked action. I've seldom ever seen this guy look bad.
I don't know, it's the first time for everything.
Maybe Canelo can make him look bad this weekend. And finally, Jake Paul was ribbing Kamaru Usman by way of social media for his constant call-outs of Canelo Alvarez, who's in a completely different sport than he is. Jake Paul said, Kamaru
Usman, quote-unquote, boxing is dying.
Also, Kamaru Usman, please, Canelo, fight me for a payday.
We talked about how fucking stupid this whole thing is here on the channel.
If boxing is a dying sport, what's that make the UFC and its fighters for turning to boxing?
It's dying. Why are you turning to boxing for a career-high purse?
I don't think he thought about how fucking stupid he looks doing all this stuff. But Kamaru, he responded to Jake by saying, "You're really good at this internet tough guy shit. I give you that. 2 questions for you. You and me locked in a room. Who makes it out alive? Saul and I locked in a room. Who makes it out alive? I like your energy, though.
I like how calamari doesn't acknowledge his own contradictions.
Guy, doesn't make sense. If boxing is a dying sport, then why are you calling out a boxer? If boxing is a dying sport, why do B-level boxers make more than A-level UFC fighters? Hell, some C-level boxers make more than A-level UFC fighters.
Does Kamaru Usman make a fight? $1.5 million?
Jesus Christ, this guy's making what a goddamn super featherweight's making. You know that's what Leo Santa Cruz made for the Gervonta Davis fight.
175 pounds, getting paid like a goddamn super featherweight.
Wants to turn his nose up at boxing, the dying sport.
Get a hold of this guy.
All these MMA guys and their followers resort to that token reference to a street fight, when in reality, There are no referees in a street fight, and you're not locked in a cage. There's nothing stopping the other guy from beating you over the head with a brick,
Poking you with an ice pick.
punching you in the dick, or splattering your noodles all over the sidewalk. If you're gonna refer to a street fight, let's talk about a street fight and what happens in the street.
These guys watch too many Jackie Chan movies.
You know, I've always felt that your average mixed martial artist that takes pleasure in trading barbs with boxers and taking shots at the sport of boxing, I've always felt that these are the guys that really wish they could make it as boxers but don't have what it takes. Because it's a well-known fact, your average C, B-level boxer makes more than your A-level mixed martial artist. There's a reason for this. It takes a certain set of skills and a certain set of characteristics to make it as an elite-level boxer. Hell, even a gatekeeper.
Derek Chisora makes more than your average mixed martial artist.
Derek Chisora, a fan favorite. He's got losses in the double digits, you understand. And Derek Chisora, fight by fight, makes more than your average A-level UFC fighter. I mean, short of a Conor McGregor, that's the situation. That's the case. He makes more than a Francis Ngannou. He makes more than an Israel Adesanya. He makes more than a Chevy Kamaru Usman.
If you could make it as a boxer, you'd make it as a boxer so you could make serious money.
But you ain't got what it takes to make it as a boxer. What you've got is enough for you to roll around on the ground wearing a Speedo with another guy in the octagon. Whatever. And, you know, what exactly is Kamaru Usman's contract situation? Because these guys really don't have the autonomy that boxers have. They really don't. I mean, if this guy's still under contract with Dana White's UFC, he's not at liberty to take any fights with anybody else anyway. You know, the UFC might be the granddaddy of all fighting federations in the world of mixed martial arts, but it very much still is one promotional outfit. And if you're under contract with that promotional outfit, you don't have the legal liberty to branch out and do something else somewhere else.
You and me locked in a room. Who makes it out alive?
Whoever's quicker to draw. Street fighting references. These fucking street fighting references. What is this, a Chuck Norris movie?
Nothing stopping some guy from breaking a bottle over your head and then cutting you up with the shot.
The amount of times you hear these references from MMA fighters and MMA enthusiasts, MMA fans.
These people don't spend much time in the street.
For all this talk about what happens in a street fight, as if there's any referee there to stop some guy from beating you over the head with a 2x4 or a crowbar. There ain't no rules in the street. Whether you're aware of it or not, you're participating in an organized sport, the same as a boxer.
What are you gonna do? Show me your Tiger Crane style pie, mate?
Give it a rest, Goku. You're underpaid and you're disgruntled. You're looking to a boxer to give you a career high purse because you could make more money fighting that guy once than fighting in the octagon 10 times for 10 belts.
Featherweights and super featherweights making more money than you are.
These leg kick guys regurgitate these lines to nauseam whilst being trapped between the hairy legs of some guy.
Give it a rest, Tuts.
You know, because Kamaru Usman might still be under contract, I'd wager that this isn't even really a ploy to get a Canelo Alvarez fight, because if he is under contract, he's not at liberty to take it. I'd wager that he's really just trying to ride Canelo Alvarez's wave.
In terms of marquee value, Kamaru Usman hasn't turned out to be a Conor McGregor.
I mean, really?